Welcome to the Happiness Happens podcast. I'm Simona Nicole, host of the show, mindset coach, and motivational speaker. I've made it my mission to help you get unstuck, shift your mindset, and understand your worth to help you live your most purposeful life. Each week, I will bring you an idea, guest, or a positive thought that will leave you inspired and empowered to win your life. We decide the stories we tell ourselves and where we invest our energy. I'm so grateful you popped in. Now let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode on the Happiness Happens podcast. I'm so excited that you're here. We have such a great conversation ahead for you today. We actually have a guest that was on the podcast before, and I just loved everything that she said and everything that she stands for so much. So I had to have her back on the podcast. We have so many different topics that we're going to dive into today, but you will probably remember her from a past episode. Her name is Dr. Heather Manley, and she is a naturopathic doctor. And yeah, Dr. Heather, welcome back to the podcast.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy you're here too.
You're always fun to talk with.
Oh, thank you. I feel the same way. And right before we hit record on this, just for everyone who's listening, we were just talking because Dr. Heather used to live in Toronto, and that's where I'm from, or like I'm from the sort of around the area. And so just kind of like reminiscing. It was so nice just to talk about that. It's always nice when you have like a fellow Canadian who understands what it's like.
Yes, it's nice to have my foot there right now. So just talking to you. So.
Exactly. I love it. Dr. Heather, can you just tell everyone a little bit about, who you are and what you do in a nutshell? I know that, I've introduced you in the past, but for anyone who may not be familiar.
Yeah, well, I grew up in Toronto, and then gosh, it's always such a hard, like, what about me? Well, I actually started in wildlife conservation. I did a lot of work with sea turtles. I did my undergraduate in Florida. My dad was living there at the time. But I, shifted gears and went into, got my pre-med, and let's see. And then I worked for a medical doctor. And while I was working for him, I was shuffling through the yellow pages, dating myself. And I stumbled across a naturopathic doctor. I was looking for like nurse practitioners. I was like, what field do I want to go in? So I called him up and I was like, what are you? I've never heard of a naturopathic doctor. So that kind of, it just resonated with me. It's all about prevention and root cause, and it just made sense. And since I was in this busy conventional medical doctor, I was seeing so much stuff come in that seemed preventable. So I went to medical school, and then in Portland, Oregon, and met my husband, and he was like, we have to go to Hawaii. So I was like, okay. So we went to Hawaii, 2 babies. It was a little bit crazy, and started practicing. And I think the kids led me into writing a book series that led into a curriculum called Human Body Detectives. Kind of just reinforcing everything I what I was taught in med school, talking about, everything that we do, just learning that we have all this great physiology in our body, but we can learn about it left and right. But if we're not nourishing it, it can't do its job. So that's basically what I was, teaching the kids in the series. So yeah.
I love that. And we're going to dive into all of those different bits as well. But I think a really good place to start would kind of be just talking about why we need to prioritize our health, especially right now in times of COVID, in times of pandemic, in times of all of these things. Like, I feel like there are reasons why our health is important.
I think that's such a great question, but I think like just kind of stepping back a little bit and being more positive, because I always like to go there.
I love that. This is the Happiness Happens podcast, right?
Because people are asking this, how do I prioritize my health? And I have to do it right now. But like, let's just remember, like, we have like this tremendous ability to heal our bodies. Like, our bodies don't want to be sick. Like, our bodies are designed not to be sick. Like, we have all of these organs and physiologies and, systems in our bodies and set points that it's always trying to create this homeostasis and balance. And And so we have to really go back to trust that our bodies know what to do to take good care of ourselves. And so I think like that's really important to just hold on to, and remembering that when our bodies are really well taken care of and our physiology is really well taken care of, you know, and our health is good, we have way more choices, you know, in the world to do. Like, you can do this podcast. I can do this podcast with you. I'm going to sleep better. I can write the next best TV show. I can run the marathon, you know? So like just prioritizing our health should always be a priority, I think, because, you know, it allows us to function in everyday life. And I think we'll probably talk a little bit more about how to do that. So I think, you know, like, I just want everybody to, even if that's the only thing you take home from here, is just from this podcast, is just remembering to trust that your body can heal, and it wants to heal, and it wants to make you the best person you can be. So then on the flip side of that, like right now, I think it's even more so, and people always forget, and it's hard to remember when we're not feeling well to really take care of ourselves. But like, I think like the biggest impact that we're seeing right now with people is that we're so fearful and we're so stressed. And when we have this chronic stress and this chronic fear in our body, it really eats up all of our nutrients, like all our B vitamins, all our magnesium, because, you know, we're at this, like, we're going through it all because our bodies are working extra harder. It's like we're constantly being chased by a lion, you know, because the body can't just say, is it a pandemic or is it a lion?
It's true.
Kids. So your brain can't determine what the stress is. It just knows that it feels stressed. So it's going to be, you know, like on high gear, on high alert. And when the body is in that state, it's going to be eating up lots of nutrients. So because of that, you know, we really need to, you know, be nourishing our bodies in lots of different ways to make sure that we manage our stress better. And so that's a huge aspect. And then eating better is going to be a huge aspect, and moving your body to increase circulation. And that's all going to help you sleep better, which is important too. So yeah, so right now is a really important time, just because we're eating up all our reserves, really.
So true. It's so true. And I think it's also, you know, like, I know for me, when it was the beginning of all of this, I was just sitting at home and eating all the snacks and, you know, sitting on the couch and like really not doing like a whole lot compared to what I was doing before, because you have all of these like places are now closed. You can't go to the gym, like, you know what I mean? All this stuff. So then you find like new ways to take care of yourself, and you find new ways to try and like, you know, do different things. So I mean, for me, it was like walking for like 6 hours a day. I would just like put my running shoes on and like head out the door because I had nothing else to do. So I was like, okay, let's just go for a walk. And I think it's crazy and like kind of a little bit off topic, but I think those like the first like month was probably my favorite month that I've had in so long, because I just got to take care of just me the first time in ever. I don't know.
Yeah, I think many people felt that way. Like, we were going back and forth with being kind of scared, but kind of happy, because we got to like cuddle into our house and like get cozy and just like catch up on those TV shows or that book, or to write. And, you know, it gave us permission to kick back, which I think, you know, a lot of us need. We live in such a crazy world in general, you know, we're so busy with things. So it was a good time for people to indulge in that time.
I completely agree.
Fast forward 6 months.
It's like, okay, like, all right. It's like, okay, when is this gonna, anyways, but it is what it is. If you think of a balanced diet, how is a balanced diet so much more than just the food that we ingest?
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, well, yeah, you know, it kind of ties into what we were just talking about. Maybe we just going more depth. It's like when I think of like instead of a balanced diet, okay, maybe a
balanced life, maybe.
Yeah, like I was thinking, when you first asked, I was thinking, okay, maybe she means more balanced lifestyle.
Yeah.
But like balanced diet, that's a really good conversation as well. Because I think a lot of people they go to the grocery store, the market, and they just buy the 5 same things every week. And, that is like a great topic that in discussion that I have with patients, eat a variety, because, like a beet is going to give you different nutrients than say broccoli. So, and then you throw in leeks, or you throw in carrots or cabbage, like rotate all this color, because you get more nutrients from that. So, that's always fun to challenge yourself with. But like lifestyle, like it's, so many people, do just talk about that it's the diet, but, and I think that's actually the best place to start, but it's not the only place, because, when people talk about lifestyle, we talk about, of course, it's just nourishment to the body. So that can be food. We have to move our body, because we want our blood to be flowing, because you can be eating all this great food, but if you're sedentary, I mean, it's not like your blood stops, but it's not flowing. it's not flowing as optimally as it can. So, and we want it to flow, because we want to get all the nutrients from this great food that you've eaten and all the great air that you're breathing into the cells. And then anything that the cells don't need anymore, the waste products, that it can get into the blood and then be removed from the body. So movement is really important for just circulation. I mean, we're not even touching on like muscle and, bone health and stuff.
Totally.
And mental health with movement, because that's huge too, right?
Such a big deal.
Yeah. And then I think the other thing that gets so lost when we talk about lifestyle is hydration. Almost everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, but a good chunk of people, they just don't drink enough water. And I can understand you forget. I mean, water bottles, have been really great, to remind people to drink. But like our bodies and our brain, we're made up of 70+% of water. Yeah. And so, in order for even the blood to flow really well, you've got to be hydrated. And it's like, when you think of our cells, if they're not getting the water they need, they kind of shrivel up like a raisin, and they can't really function well. So we have to keep our water intake pretty good. But I think sometimes with everything that is in our life right now, just with environmental stuff, kind of stepping away from just even not away from water, but introducing other ways to hydrate ourselves. I love using herbal teas, because you're getting nutrients from the as long as it's herbal, you're not drinking a lot of black tea, and so it can be a little bit more dehydrating, but just the herbals give us the hydration plus so many nutrients, and it tastes better, because that's what a lot of people will say to me, water's so boring. Or infusing your water with citrus, you're just getting that extra kick of say vitamin C, plus you're getting the water. And it's just
a really good point. I never thought of it like that. Of course you would, you know what I mean? Because if you're flavoring your water with orange, let's say, of course that would naturally make its way into your diet. Huh. Yeah. I never thought about that, actually.
Yeah, it's really good for kids too. Because I have seen, I don't see so many pediatrics now as I did in the past, but, having the kids help cut up the oranges and coming up with flavors like lemon and mint is really great. And you throw that, put that on the kitchen table, or you have that in the fridge. And so the kids can, and just family members gravitate towards that versus something else.
That's such a good point.
Yeah. Or just plain water.
I love that. Those are some really, really, really great tips. I love that.
It's easy too. That's the great thing. It's just becoming more aware and implementing. I mean, it's not too hard. And if you have kids, they always want to help.
I mean, I don't have kids, but I think that would be really, really true, because you have I mean, I hope that they would want to help. You never know, but
generally they do. And I think it's always an important thing. When I've talked to parents, I'm you got to empower your kids by letting them help you.
Yeah.
Do your grocery shopping or preparing food. They want to be present. Mm-hmm. They want to be with you for one thing. And then, they want to be helpers. So
it's true.
So, yeah. And then of course, sleep is important. Which,
I mean, I know that I'm severely lacking on the sleep right now I haven't like been sleeping as much as I know that I should. And you feel it, you know what I mean? And I'm thinking, as you're saying all this stuff, I'm like, yeah, I need to drink more water. I need to move my body. I need to sleep more. I'm like, oh, I'm falling apart at the seams over here.
I think we just always have to be gentle with ourselves, and, you know,
true.
Yeah. Like,
It's
don't feel bad. Like, just try. I mean, I wasn't here to shame you.
No, I don't feel that at all. You know what? It's actually a really, really good reminder, because it's all these things that I already know. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people who are probably listening right now, like, yes, I need to drink more water. Or like, yes, I need to go for a walk instead of just sitting all day. You know what I mean? All those things you probably already know, but it's nice to have like a gentle reminder to, you know, continue on with that. And
right.
Yeah.
I love that. I love reminders too. And like my big reminder that I'm always needing is the variety of foods. I get lazy, especially when you're a parent, you have kids and they like only eat broccoli and carrots, and that's like all you buy. I'm like,
exactly. How many different ways can I make the broccoli for them to enjoy it? Yeah. Right. It's true. It's true. And I can't even imagine what it would be like to, I mean, everyone who's listening who has kids will definitely obviously know what this feels like, but having to come up with something to eat like every night, and lunches and breakfast. And I'm just like, oh my goodness. Like I come home and I'm like, what are we having for dinner tonight? Pull something quick. But like, I feel like you need to plan ahead a little bit better when you're a parent, so that you're putting something on the table and your kids aren't like, I'm starving, you know?
Yeah, no, that I think for me personally, has been the most exhausting part of parenting.
Cooking meals.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't blame you.
It really is. Yeah. We're not talking about kids, but I used to feed them dinner right after school, because
my parents used to do that with us too. 4:30, we would be having like dinner.
Yeah. And then, my husband and I might eat a little bit later, say like 6 or 6:30, and they would have like a snack or dessert or something at that time too. So
I love that.
That was a game changer in our house.
So that's a good tip, everybody who's listening. You might just save yourself a lot of time with that one. I love it. So let's shift gears a little bit, because I want to talk about, we spoke a little bit about your books on the last episode that we did together, but maybe we can touch on them a little bit. But I also want to talk about, you do a lot of work with teenagers, and you did a lot of work in the past with, teaching children about their bodies. So I'd love to know what's so important and like the most like integral part of, teaching children about how their bodies work, and like what food fuels their bodies.
Yeah. Again, like I went into, just kind of stepping back, like right after I finished school and my kids were older, and I was going into their elementary classrooms, and I was just to help out the teachers. And I was like, well, I can only talk about, let's talk about food. And then I'm like, wait a minute, you can't talk about food without digestion. They just kind of go hand in hand. So, and then I just learned very quickly that the more these kids understood how their bodies worked, the more apt they were to not just eat the carrot and peas. They were like, wait a minute, if I eat salmon, I might do better in my math test. Or if I eat this certain food, maybe I can play harder on the soccer field. Like literally, that's how their little brains would work. And so I think that kind of really was a big diving board for me to really understand, like not just working with children with that, but just even adults, like really being able to, teach, or explain or make people more aware of how their body's functioning and how it needs the nourishment, whether it's, it has to be from food and movement, like we just talked about.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was important to me to teach, and kids ate it up.
So you created like a curriculum that was implemented in some of the schools, from what I remember when we last spoke, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So what was it like to sort of watch them take this curriculum and learn so much more? Like, do you think that it had a lasting impact on their lives?
Oh, for sure. And like, that's the other thing is like, I guess maybe that's why I didn't answer your first question, but the thing is with kids, like they're little sponges, and like they just want to learn, and they want to feel good. Like that is like their main goal. Like they don't, like, maybe middle and high school is a little bit different, but they want to go to school. You know, they want to socialize. They can't wait to see their teacher. You know, and their friend, you know, so, you know, they're very motivated to feel good. And so they're going to take that all in. And so I just felt like the importance to really get them into the habit of making healthier food choices. If they can learn it at a young age, they're just going to take that in for the rest of their life, which is what a lifestyle is. Like we want these, you know, these thought patterns to be long-term. And I think, you know, the other big motivator on my side is that, you know, so many of not just children, but, you know, we're chronically sick. I mean, maybe not so much in Canada, but in the States, like people have diabetes and they have asthma and they have arthritis and they're overweight. You know, there's all these things that, you know, that are slowing them down, you know, and kids don't want that. So if I can teach them how not to be that way, then they're not going to get that. They're not going to have that chronic disease obstacle in their future.
That's actually really amazing. I feel like that would be like the changing point. I feel like there's specific topics in life that I feel like people should know about, you know what I mean? And I really think that nutrition and supporting your body is one of them, because a lot of the time what happens is, just from like my own perspective and from what I've learned in my years, you hear a lot of stories from other people around you too. So you'll have like a parent that might not necessarily like the way they look, or, you know, you'll hear a lot of things like, don't eat that, you're going to get fat. Don't eat too much of this. It's going to make you, you know, make your hips, whatever. And so all these different stories get told. But if you are the one making empowered decisions from a young age about what it is you want to eat, I feel like those things will, and this is a huge generalization that I'm saying, and I'm sure it's not backed in science at all, but I feel like the impact that someone else would have on you maybe wouldn't be as strong, because you're confident in your decisions and you know what that food is, how that food is going to impact you. But then you don't really feel guilty about having the piece of cake because you know that it's all about balance. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a huge part of my curriculum too. Like I do have a lot of people, parents calling me, or, you know, teachers like, well, you know, what are you talking about? I'm like, we're talking about whole foods. Like I don't want to talk about, you know, in balance, you know, it's all about balance.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, empowering our kids is just going to make a healthier next generation.
I completely agree.
You know what? I feel like I really need to say this because of what's going on in the world too. It's like, not only are we, when we make healthier choices in our life, the planet is going to do better. Our soils are, if we're making better food choices with organic or non-GMO, you know, our soil is going to get stronger. It's going to have more of the minerals in it, and it's going to be healthier. And, you know, it's a healthier ecosystem, and that just makes us a healthier ecosystem. We're all connected. And I think we really have to, you know, see that in the decisions that we're making, that it is for us, but it also goes down into the earth, into Mother Earth. And that's a big motivator for a lot of people. When I start talking to patients about that's not just for them, but you're also serving the planet. And that can be really refreshing for people and motivating.
I love that perspective. And it's so true, because like what you feed feeds you, essentially, how you support what's around you. Right. And I think it also goes, you know, it also goes for like mindset as well. Like what you consume around you is what you're going to be filled with. So if all you're listening to is, you know, 6 o'clock news and all the ways that everything is so terrible, that's all you're going to think about. And that's all you're going to worry about. So it kind of goes the same, like, you know, I've been having this conversation with a lot of different people too, in terms of, you know, the intention behind your food when you're eating it. So like if you're eating like a plate of pasta with the intention this plate of pasta is going to make you feel sick, or, you know, going to make you fat, or all these things, like you're more likely to have that. Is that a thing?
Oh, I went back when I was in school, and I can't remember which book it was that Deepak Chopra talked about that with. It's like, yeah, and he gave these different analogies where you could be sitting down eating McDonald's, but with your best friends, and you're happy and you're joyful. So your body's just basically, it's just going to pull what it needs, whatever it can from that fast food. But then but if you're eating, like a 5-course beautiful French meal, but with people who are going to like hurt you afterwards, you're not going to digest any of that. And that kind of goes into the nervous systems too, whether you're eating in a parasympathetic state or in a sympathetic state. But oh yeah, I feel like there's so much truth. And I tell patients that too. I'm like, listen, if you're going to have that piece of chocolate cake, enjoy it. Like no guilt, enjoy it, savor it, love it, take your time eating it, and then let it go.
I love that. That's really, really, really good advice. And I think that we spend way too much time being hard on ourselves, and so many years, especially like critical years, of just being worried about all these things that do they even really matter? You know what I mean? Like, and your health and your nutrition matters, but like, you know, what somebody else thinks of you or what have you, like, does that really matter? You know what I mean? I want to quickly pause this interview and tell you about the Handel Group coaches that I've had the honor and privilege of bringing onto the Happiness Happens podcast. With every conversation and interview, I've learned something so impactful and so life-changing. Inner You Life is the online coaching course from Handel Group that gives you the tools to get yourself unstuck, wildly happy, and thriving where it matters most to you. Your relationship to yourself, career, love, body, money, time, and more. From wherever, whenever. Recommended by Hugh Jackman, Dr. Mark Hyman, Forrest Whitaker, Elena Brower, and hundreds more. Taught in MIT, Stanford School of Business, and 50-plus institutes of learning across the world. Visit inneryou.coach and use the code HappinessHappens at checkout for $75 off. Now, back to the episode.
Yeah, no, you know, it doesn't really matter. It's how you feel. And that's the other big thing I talk to the kids about is like how is that, and patients, but like how that food makes you feel.
I love that.
And really tying that in. So
that's great. So your journey, I feel like it has evolved a lot with your children as they've grown up.
I know.
Right? I'm following your work, and that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
So I guess, you know, in terms of like, because you have 2 daughters, so in terms of, you know, where your work has taken you now, I know that you talk a lot about, you know, like hormones and, you know, sort of like different stages that your body goes through, and, you know, as you sort of like hit puberty, like that kind of thing, like that whole trajectory. Do you think that there's like a taboo around like hormones and like puberty and like all of these different stages? Loaded question.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think it's a really important question because I don't know whether the word taboo is the best word, maybe because it's like taboo is sacred, you know, but I think what people are just nervous talking about you know, the menstrual cycle and like these changes that women go through. I think for many reasons, because it's like we don't talk about it, so nobody really is like, they don't want to ask the questions.
Yeah.
Because, like, they're nervous because it's not a fluid conversation that we have. I mean, thank goodness it's happening now. But then I think the other thing, I think the taboo part probably is that when we do talk about hormones in our menstrual cycle, it's just like super negative, like, oh, I get cramps or I'm moody, and you know, and which, you know, those things do happen when our cycle is not in balance, like when our hormones aren't, you know, like working together with each other. So there's a lot of superpower, or like all these great gifts that these different hormones can give us, like estrogen gives us so much confidence and courage, and progesterone really calms us down and relieves anxiety, and you know, like, and then when all your hormones are kind of all happy and, you know, robust, you know, at ovulation, we're like super people, you know, like, so, you know, like, yeah. So I think like, you know, it's, you know, that's, I guess like when we think about it, like these hormonal shifts that we have in a 28-day period, they really, they impact our brain chemistry. Like they can really give us energy or take away energy. They can make us creative. They make us social. They make us quiet. And because of all of these shifts that we do see during a 28-day cycle, and if we can tap into them and understand them, and like when estrogen is like popping in and when progesterone is popping in, you know, we can really like grab onto like when estrogen's high and really like, I guess like a perfect example is like, can I just go through this menstrual cycle a little bit?
Oh my God, 100%. Take it away. Take it away.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you, I was probably going to ask you the questions anyways, because my next question was going to be like, okay, so like, how do we start to tune into this? So like, go, yeah. Take it away.
Well, okay. So I'll lead into that too. So like, I think, okay, so let's just pretend we're going through like the cliff notes of the menstrual cycle. So day 1, we get our period. When we get our period, all our hormones are super low. So when they're low, we're not getting any of the benefits from these hormones. So it's a lot of time people, women, they're tired, they're a little bit more fatigued, and it's kind of a way for the body to get quiet and reflect inwards and take care of yourself, spend more time alone, write in your journal, write down your goals, your intentions, like just be by yourself, go into your own little cave. Like that's what I think that the body is kind of throwing you into when you have your period. And then when our period, you know, ceases, like, you know, 5 days later, estrogen starts to build. So estrogen is like this, like punch, like it gives you this confidence, it gives you this courage, it makes you feel like you can do anything. And so like I talk about it, gives us like strength, and like it just makes us feel really good. And when that starts building, you know, that's when, like I tell a lot of teenagers, like this is a really good time to, like, if you have to talk to your parents about something that you don't really talk about, like you have more confidence, you have more courage to do it during that time. And then when you get closer to ovulation, where testosterone's a little bit high, estrogen's a little bit high, progesterone's starting to like sneak in, you know, you're like super women. Like this is the time, if you have to run a marathon, do it. If you have job interviews, schedule it at this time. If you, I don't know, like whatever you're doing, that's like, you need that upper, you know, lift, this is the time to do it when you're ovulating. And then, you know, then we go into the luteal phase, which is the second half. And if we've ovulated, but that's a whole different conversation, you know, we get progesterone, and progesterone it activates the GABA neurotransmitter in the brain. And I mean, GABA, I don't know if you're familiar, it's a neurotransmitter that helps with anxiety and panic. So it's really can help us calm us down. So this is a good time too, like if you have to go into a stressful event, maybe you should make sure that you're in your luteal phase, you know, so you're calm, you have this extra GABA in your system. So, you know, it's all of those things can be you know, I mean, there's a lot more to talk about within there, but like just that, and then tying that into like how you can get into this balance. One thing that I have a lot of people do, because I always think it's important to get into nature and just like to sync up with, or just look at the sky and look at the tree. I mean, I just think it's really important. But even with the cycle, like we think about, we have 4 seasons, you know, and we have, the moon has 4 moon cycles, phases. So like,
so true.
Yeah. So, and we have 4 phases in our menstrual cycle. So if we can really think about nature and our cycle, that can be really allow us to feel more safe and more connected. You know, I think it's really helpful, especially with teenagers, you know, like they get this. And actually I have a woman who's getting off pharmaceuticals, birth control pills. And she's like, oh, my cycle's all over the place. I'm like, follow the moon. Like,
I've heard that.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I don't know. We're kind of forcing her body to, like, if she's starting to think about, oh, it's a new moon, I kind of want to get my period during the new moon. I mean, and literally this did happen. She got her period like 2 days before the new moon. And then, you know, and then usually 14 days later, it's a full moon, it's bright, you're ovulating, you're light, you're happy.
Wow.
So it's kind of looking like we're manipulating her body to follow the moon, which I love. And then when we think about the seasons, just going back to the follicular phase when after we get our period, that's kind of represents the springtime. Like things are popping out of the ground, like these flowers were like nestled into the dark soil, thinking, I'm going to grow up and be this beautiful flower. And so like when you finish your period, that's kind of what's happening. You're kind of blossoming. Everything that you thought about during your period, you can put those goals and intention into action. So, it's kind of fun to like think about all of these different ways to get in tune with your own body and sync that up with nature.
I love that so much. And I really love that you link it up to the phases of the moon, because I think it's so true. Because if you're not, for everyone who's listening, like, I mean, if you are listening to this podcast, odds are you are spiritual in some sense, because I mean, otherwise these topics would not interest you at all. But if you think about like the phases of the moon, so right before the new moon happens, that is the phase where you're going to write your intentions, you burn your paper of whatever you want to release, right? So that just makes it such a natural fit that of course that would be the time, like from what I heard and from what I understand, it is actually like a natural time for most women to get their periods right before.
It is, usually what I tell my students that, some women get their period in the new moon and some of them get it on the full moon. So like, I try not to like say you have to
like categorize it too much.
Yeah, to be open, but typically we think the dark moon, the winter, you have your period, you have low energy, so it kind of like makes a little bit of sense. So it's, I don't know, it's like fun.
That's really, really cool, because it's so true. Like from there, you can bounce into so many different areas of like productivity, especially if you're an entrepreneur, let's say, you can line up your different phases of your business to that time period and maximize your productivity, right?
Yes, that would be great. I mean, it could be really powerful, if you really get in tune with the different hormones and the different times of the month and utilize that to your entrepreneurship.
I love that. I love that a lot. So your new program is called Know Your Body Period. And so what's it about? Who's it for? And what's the goal of it?
Well, I think the goal is like everything we just talked about, so maybe I'll step back. So like when the girls were, I think like 8 and 11, they're a lot older now. But they were, it's crazy, but they were coming of age. Like my older one was like preteen and all our girlfriends were, and I'm like, gosh, I have to everything's always open at our dinner table, but I'm like, I want to go deeper, but I'm not, like, teenagers are strange beasts. So I was like, maybe I should just get a group of her friends together and we'll just sit around the table and like, I'll get their moms involved, like to like make sure they come, and we'll serve some like herbal tea and just have chit chat and have some fun, like kind of like Human Body Detectives, like some fun games and graphics, and put it all together. And it was all about the 28-day cycle, just kind of going over everything that's happening. And it was great. And like, they were like, wow, I'm pretty cool. Like my body can do this. So, and then I kind of expanded a little bit and put it out into the world. And then that was, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago, but I think in the last couple of years, I'm like, I gotta add more to this, because I started seeing in the last couple of years, a lot of older teens and women in their 20s who were on pharmaceuticals, like birth control pills, basically since they got their period. So like within the first year of their period, because they were having cramping or acne or whatever, which is very typical because the brain and the ovaries haven't started to communicate. So almost every teen has heavy periods because there's more estrogen than progesterone. Right. But there's ways that we can do to help get that balance. And that's like the moon phases. And then there's some herbs that can help. And that's such a healthier way to go versus throwing a pharmaceutical at them, because there's so many side effects from the pharmaceuticals. It needs vitamins. And then when they do want to go off the birth control pill, then their brain and their ovaries have never connected. So now they have to connect. So you're going to get all the symptoms again. So
that's actually so true. It's like a Band-Aid. It's not going to fix the problem.
That's exactly what it is. Like I was just talking about earlier, we have a woman, she's in her late 30s and we're getting her off the birth control pill. And it's been a big job. So
really,
yeah, well, I like to, because I want it to be as pleasant as possible. So we
course.
like at these phases to like get her ready to just stop taking it. So, but I think we've done a good job. She's already kind of hooked up with the moon. She just got her period on the new moon, and we were like, yeah,
oh my God, everyone's like, yay.
So I wanted to expand, and it led into Know Your Body period to
Mhm.
really help girls understand that they have choices, and that parents know that they have choices, that there's other things you can do instead of giving them a Band-Aid. And really teaching the girls that it is kind of normal to have a heavier period because you have more estrogen.
Yeah.
But that's what we can do. And so really introducing all that and giving, so I talk about the physiology, talk about these, the superpowers within the hormones, and then I tie in the seasons and the moon and a lot of nutrients and why sleep is important, and then tying in like crystals and like essential oils, like a lot of self-care stuff that can be really helpful during those time periods, and recipes and
Sounds like an amazing program.
yeah, I think like it's geared towards preteens and teens, because it's just going back to like, if we can get kids to tap into that stuff, it becomes more innate for the rest of their lives, so that they don't even think about it. It's just, that's what we do, right? But I think like I've had some moms are doing it with their daughters, and they're like, wow, I'm learning stuff. I wish I had known this, this
It's
is
true.
cool. So
It's true.
I think any age could really take it. So
there's so many things that I wish I would have known back when I was like 14, you know what I mean? Or like 13, and like looking back.
14, you thought you knew everything.
Oh, of course I did. Of course I knew everything. No one had the answers except for me. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, it's so true. I just got out of that stage a few years ago. So.
And you're like, so I was right. No, I'm just kidding.
I can't do that for probably another 10 years.
Yeah, probably around the age of like, 28, 29, 30, they might even come back to you and be like, you know what, Mom, you were right when I was 10. I've done so much of that now. I'm like, Mom, when I was 15, you were right. And she's like, thank you. Like,
yes, the wrinkles and the gray hair.
That's your fault. No,
I do that with my girls.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. That's so funny. So this program then is available through your website for purchase. And there's a code as well, everyone. I'm going to put it in the show notes as well, but there's a code for listeners of the show. So if you're interested, definitely use it and grab it.
I want everyone to learn this stuff. So
I'm like, I think I should take this course. There's a lot of things that I have so many questions for you about my own personal life. I might have to take them offline.
That's fine.
Amazing. So in terms of, I know you're speaking about it a little bit before, but like natural ways that you can support your menstrual cycle would be, I guess if you could have your top 3 like natural ways of like supporting your menstrual cycle, what would you say? It's hard to pick just 3.
I mean, I know. Well, I think probably the biggest, well, okay, there's a couple. One of the biggest ones is stress, because I noticed that, we need to ovulate to make progesterone, and we need the progesterone to help us feel calm, like we were talking about with the GABA. And if we're really stressed out, we're not going to ovulate. And so, so I think like really understanding how you can manage your stress, because it's going to be different. Like some people want to go out for a 5-mile run. Some people want to go do yoga. Some people meditate. You got to find your way to help manage your stress. And then I think the other thing is like, in order to make hormones, we need good quality fat. So I see a lot of kids, especially, the teenagers, where they're so athletic, they're exercising, it's not like they're not hungry, but they're so hungry they don't make good food choices, because they're just like, I gotta gobble it up. But we really need to be eating, it's like the good quality fat is like the mother to making hormones. So, eating, your avocados and coconut milk and coconut
like
oil.
actual, yeah.
Yeah, and olives and olive oil and, like salmon and nuts and seeds, like really good quality fat, so you can make the hormones that you need. And then, I think like, again, like hydration is really huge.
I love that.
So.
I love those. Those are really, really, really great tips. Thank you. Okay, Dr. Heather, you may remember this from the last time I had you on the podcast, but I would love to ask you a question. It's a question that I ask all of my guests when they come on the show.
Okay.
It's how can our listeners create a little more happiness in their day, every day, starting today?
I think probably one of the most powerful things to do is to think about what you did as an 8-year-old. Because I feel like when people are 8 or when kids are 8, they don't really care what other people think. They're just doing things to make them feel good. So if you, like I used to bake all the time, even as an 8-year-old. And sometimes when I feel like I need happiness, I need some joy, I need to lift, I find myself going making cookies.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So I think, and I had a male patient many years ago, and he was struggling. I'm like, what'd you do when you were 8? And he lit up. He was like, I used to do this and that. And I'm like, okay, let's do more of that. So.
Oh, I love that. That's a great tip. I love that so much. I don't even know what I did when I was 8. I think I might have blocked I don't know why. Like, I think I blocked all that out of my mind, but I don't know I used to dance a lot when I was a kid. I loved it.
Put on your favorite song and like dance it out. Like that's good. That's powerful.
I love that. I love that so much. Yes. Where can our listeners find you? Because I know they're going to want to learn more.
Okay, well, you can go to humanbodydetectives.com. You can learn more about Know Your Body Period and some of my other curriculum. It's also on Thinkific, so if you want to cruise over there too. Or then I have drheathernd.com. So if you want to learn more about the naturopathic stuff, you can go there. So yeah.
Amazing.
Instagram, I think it's Human Body Detective. So.
Yes. I'll put all of those links in the show notes so that everyone can just click and get there really easily.
Great.
I love it. Amazing. Thank you so much for this incredible conversation. I can't believe how quickly the time has flown by.
I know. It's easy to talk about this stuff because it's fun.
Exactly. And you're so passionate about it too, which makes it even better because you are excited to talk about it. So when you're excited to talk about it, people are excited to learn about it. So
okay, good. Well,
I love that.
I want people to know this stuff.
I love it.
So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in to this week's episode on the podcast. If you loved this episode as much as I absolutely did, take a screenshot of this episode and share it with us on social media. Tag both of us so we know that you're listening. And don't forget to head to the show notes so you can grab the code so you can head over to Dr. Heather's course and purchase it for yourself, for someone you love, for someone you know who needs it. It's super important. And I think that, change starts when we take the first step. And so I think it's really important to consider that in everything that you're doing and how many lives you can impact with that mindset. So thank you all so much for tuning into this week's episode. And remember, happiness happens when you're least expecting it. Thanks so much for being here today. I hope these words have brought you inspiration, insight, and a bit more happiness. Please leave a comment or a review if this episode resonates with you. I would be so grateful. Until next time, remember that happiness happens when you're least expecting it.